So, you're aiming for that senior Salesforce role, right? It's a huge leap, the interviews are notoriously tough, and the competition is fierce. But what if you had a secret weapon, a blueprint? Well, that's what we're going to build today. Let's dive into the 4 pillars that will absolutely get you that offer. Whoa! Okay, take a look at this. This is a real question, the kind of thing you'd get from a place like PayPal. And you'll notice it's not just one question, is it? It's like 3 or 4 questions all mashed together. They're testing your Apex, your integration know-how, error handling, all of it. They really want to see if you can connect the dots under pressure. And that's where we come in. We're going to give you the strategy to tackle questions just like that. See, this isn't about memorizing a bunch of facts. It's about building a framework, a new way of thinking. Basically, how to think like a senior dev.
Okay, pillar number 1, mastering Lightning Web Components. We're going to start right where the user experience begins, the front end. And trust me, when it comes to LWC in a senior interview, they're digging way deeper than just how do you build a component. They want to see you own the entire framework.
Just look at this. This mind map really shows you the scope we're talking about. An interviewer isn't going to just ask about, lifecycle hooks. They're going to hit you with questions on DOM manipulation, different data strategies, performance, maintainability, the whole shebang. It's all about that big picture view.
All right, this is a classic interview question right here. Attwire versus imperative Apex. And here's the deal. Attwire is awesome. It's declarative, it handles caching, it's great for just getting data onto the screen. But, and this is the key, a senior dev knows when not to use it. If you need to call Apex exactly when a user clicks a button, you gotta go imperative. It's all about knowing the why and explaining your choice.
So, you've got 2 components on a page. They're not related, they don't know each other exist. How do you get them to talk? The junior dev might try to build some crazy complicated chain of events. The senior dev? They use the Lightning message service. Simple as that. When you bring up LMS, you're telling the interviewer that you think like an architect. You're thinking about decoupling and future-proofing your code.
Okay, let's flip over to the other side of the coin. Pillar 2, building a bulletproof backend. We're moving from the client to the server now, and this is where you really show your senior level chops. We're talking Apex, all about scale, efficiency, and writing rock-solid code.
Async Apex, you've got options, and you have to know which one to pick. Think of it like this. Need something simple? Just fire and forget? You go with a future method. Need to chain jobs? Maybe pass some complex data? That's a job for Queuable. Got a massive amount of data, like millions of records to crunch through? That's batch Apex, no question. Knowing the difference here is absolutely non-negotiable. This right here, this quote, says it all. It's the difference between just writing code and actually designing a solution. Look, anyone can slap together a trigger, but a senior engineer, they build a trigger framework using something like a dispatcher pattern. That shows you're thinking ahead. It keeps things clean, stops recursion in its tracks, and makes sure the system doesn't fall apart when things get complicated.
Okay, let's be super clear about this. Governor limits aren't suggestions. They're the laws of physics on the Salesforce platform. You break them, your code breaks, period. So your ability to write code that plays by the rules is everything. We're talking bulkifying your code, always, using maps to kill SOQL queries inside of loops, and being smart about when to push heavy lifting to an async process. This is basically Apex 101 for any senior role.
All right, here's a little pro tip for you. Write this one down. When the interviewer asks you about security, specifically field-level security, yeah, you can talk about the old-school schema-described methods, but if you really want to impress them, you mention using with security_enforced in your SOQL queries. It's clean, it's modern, and it shows you are absolutely on top of your game.
Pillar number 3, connecting the platform with APIs. Because let's be real, Salesforce almost never lives on an island by itself. Being able to connect it to everything else, that's a huge piece of the senior puzzle.
So what is a REST API? Honestly, the easiest way to think about it is that it's the universal language of the web. It's simple, it's light, and it uses the same basic commands like get, post, delete that your web browser is using all the time. This is what makes it so powerful for hooking Salesforce up to literally anything. Mobile apps, other big corporate systems, you name it. This might seem basic, but it's a super critical distinction. Inbound versus outbound. Inbound is easy. Stuff is coming into Salesforce. Think of a website contact form creating a new lead. Outbound is the opposite. Salesforce is calling out to another system, like, say, pinging a shipping service when an order is ready. You've got to be comfortable designing solutions that go both ways. And this right here, This is what a pro does. You don't just start writing code and hope for the best. You use a tool like Postman first. It lets you test your API call, make sure your authentication is working, check that the data looks right before you've written a single line of application code. It's a fundamental step, and it shows you have a process.
Let's be blunt. You can't talk about APIs without talking about security, and the standard for that is OAuth 2.0. There's a reason everyone uses it. It lets different systems trust each other without ever passing around actual usernames and passwords. If you can talk intelligently about the different OAuth flows, you're immediately signaling that you're a serious integration expert.
And that brings us to our final pillar. Pillar 4, thinking like an architect. And honestly, this is the one. This is what separates the good developers from the great ones. It's not just about if you can write the code. It's about if you can design a solution that will last.
Think of Apex design patterns as your architectural toolkit. They're not some abstract academic thing. They are battle-tested, reusable solutions to problems that developers face over and over again. When you start talking about design patterns in an interview, it shows you're not just hacking a solution for today, you're building something for the long haul.
Let's take a concrete example, the strategy pattern. Imagine you have a bunch of different ways to calculate shipping costs. The messy way is a giant if-else-if block. The clean way, the strategy way, is to put each calculation method into its own separate class. Why? Because now your code is super clean. And if marketing dreams up a new shipping promo, you just add a new class. You don't have to touch any of the old working code.
Or how about the factory pattern? This one is all about one thing, decoupling your code. Let's say you have some really complex object to create. Instead of having the logic to build it scattered all over your code, you create a central factory. Now your code just says, hey factory, I need one of those things. If you need to change how that thing is built later on, you change it in one place, the factory, not in 50 different places. And finally, thinking like an architect means you see the whole picture, the entire development lifecycle. We're talking about the essentials of how modern teams work. You're using Git for version control. You're automating your tests and builds with a CI/CD pipeline. You're using clean scratch orgs for every feature. And you're using Salesforce X to manage your deployments. This is just how it's done at an enterprise level.
All right, that was a lot, I know. So let's bring it all back home. Let's recap and build your final interview blueprint. So here it is, your path to success. It really comes down to these 4 pillars. 1, master the LWC front end. 2, build a bulletproof backend with Apex. 3, connect your org to the world with APIs. And 4, the most important one, tie it all together by thinking like an architect. This is your study guide. This is the framework for your answers.
And that leaves us with just one last thing to think about. The Salesforce platform, it never stands still, right? So the skills that make you a senior dev today, they're really just the starting point for tomorrow. The real secret, the real opportunity is to just never ever stop learning.